It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. I'm excited to talk with my guest today. Joining me is Sunny Bonnell. She is the co-founder of Motto, a design and branding firm based in Dallas, Texas. Sunny, welcome to Accelerate.
Thanks for having me.
So take a minute, introduce yourself.
Sure. So I'm Sunny Bonnell, as you said, and I'm the co-founder and creative director of Motto. And Motto is a comprehensive branding agency. We work with bold and ambitious companies to help them build inspiring and magnetic brands.
Bold and ambitious companies. Okay, so you're not going to work with anybody that's not bold, not ambitious. You can't help somebody become bold and ambitious by changing their logo or their stripes, right?
It's very true. We really look for big thinkers, entrepreneurs that have, all these sort of audacious visions, and we work with them to try to bring that brand and vision forward into the world, to help them do really remarkable things.
Right. So you talk about that you're writing a book about how great leaders defy the ordinary to build extraordinary brands. Mm-hmm. So what is extraordinary?
Well, I think, extraordinary is the opposite of ordinary. And I think a lot of organizations and companies fall back on tactics that they're used to and familiar with. And I think in today's marketplace, we're seeing the need for organizations to take a step forward and to actually do something different, to stand up, stand out, actually stand for something. And so when we work with companies, we really try to push them to think beyond product and service and really think about what they stand for and what they're trying to do in the world. And I think when you do that and you're able to embody that in the brand that you build and also in the organization that you lead, I think that you're able to get attention and have people kind of, I guess, bring them to some kind of loyalty, where I think most companies don't have that. The majority of companies that we work with kind of get by in that mindset in the beginning, and then we really push them very hard to think different and to really try to create a brand that is extraordinary. And so I'm seeing more and more of that kind of that thinking come about, which is great.
So is the resistance to this whole idea of doing something extraordinary? Because, part of it's just complacency, I presume, on most people. They're just not aware of the importance of what their brand can do for them.
Right.
On one hand, and then the other is fear of change.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think, as I said earlier, I just think you can't play like other people play. And especially if you're in a category where there is deep expertise or you have a lot of commonality. Let's just say, and I'll use an example. Almost every other call we get is from someone launching a food bar, some kind of bar right. that's going to, that for fit people or for active people or for, CrossFitters and things of that nature. And that is a very crowded space right now. And all of their stories are the same. They're all saying they're using these, organic products and they're non-GMO and all of this sort of ad lib. And that's great, but there has to be something more. And, the people who have deeper pockets and value brand and are actually telling something, telling a story that is remarkable, I think those companies will win. We have a client right now in this space who was the first person to market with food on the go in a pouch. They took the concept for, I don't know if you've ever seen those pouches that moms get for babies that have like fruit and veggies in them and so forth. And so they kind of took that concept and said, hey, we've got this audience who are adventurers and rock climbers and all this stuff. And we're going to create a food that goes in kind of on the go pouches.
They're not babies.
No, they're not babies.
Okay.
And thank goodness. But yeah, that they filled a very unique niche and void. And so, that kind of, and their mission is really powerful. And I think those kinds of companies stand a good chance to win.
Right. So you described a scenario that plays out across all, even business. You describe particularly business to consumer spaces, but certainly apply to business. You can go into nearly every market segment, and there's a huge explosion in number of competitors. And yeah, one of the artifacts or results of that is that, hey, all the competitors start looking alike in the eyes of the buyers.
It's true, and it stems back to. You made a great point. So B2B, I think more and more companies have to dig deeper and look at their culture, look inside the walls of the organization, again, move beyond product and service, and maybe even having great customer service. To me, that's like a given. So many people that we have worked with in the past have said things like that their competitive difference is that their people are like they have great customer service. And I'm like, well, actually, that's not really a benefit, meaning like, it's
an expectation. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, right. if you're in business today, you should have good customer service. Like, it shouldn't be a rare thing, but it is. It actually is. How many times have we gone into a store, called a company and, like been left on hold or just had a very poor experience, not been kind of catered to or taken care of. And I think companies overlook that. They have a lot of values that they send around in their PowerPoint, but they don't necessarily live or embody them in the way that I think most companies in today's marketplace need to do. And so that's kind of our sermon, if you will. We believe in actually, doing what you say you're going to do and actually having something of value to offer to the world and really communicating that through the brand that you build and the company that you lead. I mean, that's truly what our belief is.
Sure. So let's unpack some of that. It's not enough. And I think it's one of the mistakes companies make when they say, we'll create a brand around customer services to tell people how good they are at customer service, which to me always sort of raises the defenses like, if they really have to talk about it, probably not something that they're really living and exemplifying. Do you find that to be the case? I mean, that when people sort of a mistake people make with branding is they want to talk to what they think too overtly, I guess, to what they think their brand value is.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, we get this request all the time, believe it or not, that a lot of times a company will come to us and ask us to tell a story that's not actually true. We had a client, a potential client one time call us and say that they wanted to make a line of honey. And the honey was going to be curated from these third world farmers. And, the story was so magnificent. I mean, I felt myself like leaning closer and closer into the phone, just thinking like, wow, this would be such a great project. And I was, Ashley and I were so excited about it. And as we kind of pushed a little bit more about if we were to work together, we'd love to fly out there and tour the space, to really, in order to brand it properly, to get it to experience it firsthand. And he got quiet and he said, oh, no, that's not really the truth. That's the story I want to tell because I think it will sell. And I was like, wow, this is actually happening. And this has happened to us many, many times. Like companies think that's what the audience wants to hear, or they think it's a really do-good story, or maybe it's a purpose-driven story that may or may not be true.
Okay, so that ultimately always comes out though, doesn't it?
Probably. I mean, I think that there's a lot of, you have to think about what's that water, Voss water, where they say they go to the edge of the spring.
Oh, the glacier or whatever. Yeah, right.
Yeah, like it's dripping off the glacier, and they're just staying underneath it with
just capturing it. Yeah, that's right.
Just capturing it bottle by bottle. I mean, I don't know. I think the companies that we've certainly worked with, or that we choose to work with, let me put it that way, are companies that we really believe and have seen behind the scenes of what they're doing, and know that it's genuine and coming from an honest place. I think some companies, though, do ask us to fabricate the story, which always makes us feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Now, one of the other comments, as you had made earlier, is something about having deep pockets. I mean, does it take deep pockets to really build a brand? I mean, because a lot of the people that listen to the show are entrepreneurs, startups, companies of more limited means.
Yeah. I think you have to be very realistic about that. Brand building is not something you do once. It's a labor of love. And it is something that takes time and thought and love and a lot of care. And that sometimes translates to investment. And I think what entrepreneurs and startups often forget is they spend a lot of time on the product development and not thinking about the brand. And, our philosophy is that you're building a brand from the moment that you start asking people to support you and the moment the idea is born. Because then you are going out into the world and you're asking people to back you and to believe in you. And it's not enough to have the idea. Execution is so much of that. And I think what entrepreneurs fail to sometimes understand, especially if they've never been through it before. Now, entrepreneurs that we worked with that have built other brands know how important brand is to success. Just as much as it is to have a great product or service, it's just as important to have a great brand. And so I think, you can absolutely, there are ways to, for lack of a better word, hack a brand, meaning like if you can do things on your own, like discover the purpose and articulate it, draft your own vision, work through the values, articulate who you are outside of your own head and into some type of framework that you begin to build the company of. Those things don't cost you anything but time and a little bit of effort, to kind of put forth. When it comes to actually building out a brand, meaning like, are you investing in things like the identity and, packaging and a website and, maybe even, trade show materials or, such and such, like, those are things that of course, like require some investment to do well and to do right. But you can do things like, I think in stages or phases to kind of use your money wisely, but it's like anything, you can't sort of invest everything into one pot and then kind of skimp on the thing that will represent you in the world, which is actually brand. I mean, without brand, you don't have much at all. And just like, I think what we're seeing a shift in is that we're now moving away from it being product and service to actual people. People are brands. Like just look at Beyonce. Look at, Tony Robbins, like, Howard Schultz. I mean, these individuals, you're a brand, I'm a brand. And the message and the sort of visual and verbal connotation that we put out into the world is actually what sticks with people. And that is absolutely branding in and of itself.
Absolutely. I mean, any sales representative that's out talking to a customer, they have a personal brand that they're representing when they're talking to them. Mm-hmm. And
absolutely.
Yeah, we spend a lot more time writing about and talking about the importance of taking advantage of the tools that exist to everybody. And in this case, mostly social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, and so on. And where do you start by building a personal brand? Well, a lot of times it's there in that social media profile. Mm-hmm. How are you branding yourself in such a way that, given a world where the customers are being inundated by sort of undifferentiated messaging, how do you stand apart? How do you stand out from the crowd?
Yeah, well, and it's the $1 million question. So many companies and so many individuals ask us that very same thing. I think one thing that is a mistake is to start looking at your competitive landscape in a way that you become paralyzed. We get a lot of calls sometimes of people saying we want to be the next Apple, and our sort of rebuttal is, no, actually you need to be the next you. And
right.
and I think because some people are unsure of who they are, it becomes harder to brand themselves because they're unsure and not confident in who they are. But when we do work with leaders and organizations that have a true sense of self, it is extraordinary because you really begin to see how much they love not only the brand that they're building, but the company that they're building. And so it makes our work a lot more meaningful and rewarding because we're a part of something that begins to take shape and we're watching it sort of unfold and having a hand in that evolution and unfolding of that brand or organization. But yeah, I mean, it is very difficult to be creative. A lot of people struggle with it. They don't know how to think outside the box because let's face it, most of our life, we have been taught to fall inside the lines. We have been taught to conform to a set of standards that society deems acceptable. And when we sort of demonstrate that individuality, we're often ridiculed. Sometimes we're even suppressed. And maybe even worse, we're like stripped of our own sense of possibility. And so I think it makes it harder and harder for people to know that it is okay to be weird or different, or to try things in a new light to get people to pay attention, because otherwise, the world doesn't notice the common. And I heard a great, I watched this remarkable speech called I don't know if you saw this floating around on social media, but it was from a guy by the name of Donovan Livingston, who did the 2016 Harvard graduation speech. And one of his lines was, "None of us were meant to be common. We were born to be comets." And I thought that was just so brilliant, because it's very true. I think we have to see ourselves as not ordinary and not common, but actually have a gift to give to the world, and figure out ways to deliver that, whether that's through our business, whether it's through our brand, whether it's through the work that we do, our careers that we choose. We are able to do those things in the world. And, it's sometimes we're our own worst enemy. We're the ones that get in the way.
Well, yeah, I think that's oftentimes the case, more often the case than not. So you have done work with smaller entities. And I thought, sir, interesting to talk about some of the examples. I mean, for instance, one of the companies that you profile on your website is a barbershop.
Yeah, those guys are cool.
So you're high-powered branding agency, yet you did a branding branding project for a barbershop in Fort Worth. So tell us about that. How'd that come about, and what's it done for them?
Yeah, well, that's a very recent example. So Jonathan, who is he calls himself the janitor, but he's really the CEO and the founder of Fort Worth Barbershop. It's just a little small town barbershop on the corner in downtown Fort Worth, Texas. And we met him he came to see us speak at a branding talk that we did, and just kind of connected with him. And he said, I built this website, and I feel like I kind of need to take my brand to the next level. And so, we worked with him on just clarifying that and really bringing a new experience online. We went in and did some new storytelling and interviewed some of the barbers, and just worked alongside of them to kind of spend a day there at the barbershop. And, so many men were coming in and out and just kind of hanging out for the day. And it was just sort of this really interesting community of guys, and it was really fun to be a part of, and build them a brand and build them a website that, as it's only been up actually a couple of days, so I can't speak to the results so far, but he said that just in the short time it's been up, he's gotten a lot of feedback that people are really think it's really strong and really connected and want to get their haircut. So I think that's pretty cool.
So, again, example of a small company and then another one that was it looked like a small ice cream company, Sweet Scoops.
Yeah, Sweet Scoops is that was a family-owned business. Her father started scooping ice cream back in the 80s, I believe it was. And it was passed down to her brother and then passed down to her. And she took over the company, and it became sort of a frozen yogurt company. A lot of history there, a lot of story. And
so would they have their own parlor? I mean, or were they manufacturing under other labels? What were they doing?
No, they were, it was a scoop shop, and then it turned into like frozen yogurt. They actually were making in-house and then distributing. So for example, like they're in Whole Foods and things of that nature. And just a really cool story. The CEO, the leader of that company, just really loved the brand, loved a family-owned business, really wanted to kind of not necessarily break what had been done, meaning like, she had this long history and this heritage in the brand, but she felt like, hey, I'm taking over it now, and I feel like I want to infuse my own vision into this now and kind of build out the brand the way that I want. So we worked with them on sort of reshaping the identity and really rebranding their line of flavors all the way through. I think they had something like 12 flavors at the time that we rebranded them, and I think they've created more since then. But very, very powerful rebranding launch for them, and just love their story. Really connected with the love that she had for the organization and for the brand, and that makes, like I said, it makes our job a lot easier because we're working with somebody who truly values the work that we were doing together.
So, what's been the payoff for them?
I think that they've had a lot more collaborations in terms of, I think they were sort of up in I want to say like New Hampshire area. And I think they've now since expanded into different stores and actually moving west now with the line. So that's really exciting. And I just think a lot more shelf presence than they had before, which was the brand when they came to us was pretty faint. You know, it had kind of hit a wall and was not performing well. And since the rebrand, they've had a lot of success. So that's really exciting to see what they're up to.
So let's tackle a couple issues. So one is, let's get down to the personal level. And we touched on it a little bit before in terms of personal branding for sales reps, but you're an expert at branding, and this personal branding is so crucial. And so what steps, name one or two, three things, if you could, that sales reps should be doing to take control of their personal brand, regardless if they're working for a company or working for themselves. What should they do to start that process?
Well, I think the question becomes what is the goal for that individual? Like you said, are they selling themselves? Or are they selling the company? As a salesperson, I think that your job solely is to kind of work on behalf of the organization that you're a part of. And I think you begin to adopt the principles and philosophies of whatever that company is that you're working for. And I think that, when in sales, you should be able to bring those values and that culture forward into the product or service that you're selling. Now, whether or not, there's two ways to look at it. You can look at a person who's actually trying to sell themselves, meaning, are they trying to create their own personal brand and, sort of go on to do lectures or things of that nature? It's a loaded question because I'm not sure which one to answer.
Well, I think just for success within their own career path within a company, it's you could be selling, software as a service of a particular vertical market. There could be 10 other companies. So your personal brand is really going to be one of the things that helps you stand out. Yeah.
And I think it's a great way to frame it. I think that, most people don't think about their, like you said, it's sort of like all about the product and less about the person. And I think in today's market, people do business with people. And if in some way you can embody, your best qualities, whether that's a sense of humor, like to me, that's like your brand. If you're a funny guy or a funny gal, like, those kinds of things begin to represent why people choose you over other people. And I think, depending on.
And is it okay though, that being the case, let's say they're funny, let's say sense of humor is something that, really is a key part of what their personality type is. It's been effective with customers to some degree, let's say greater degree than lesser degree. Is it okay for them, or should they then, do something within their social profiles that reflect that display that sense of individualism as opposed to just, hey, I'm another corporate soldier, corporate drone?
Yeah, I think that we're going to see a lot less of that happening.
A lot less
of that kind of control, over people and their personalities. I think the world is becoming too exposed. You've got too many people on too many platforms. Like everybody's on Snapchat, everybody's on Instagram, they're on Facebook, they're on Twitter. And to think that you can somehow squeeze them out of their personality to be, like you said, another soldier in the line of a sales team, like to me, you're squashing their very soul. And so, for us, like even with people that work for Motto or people that we partner with for Motto, like individuality is really important to us. Now, whether or not it fits in line with our values is another. Those are all things that I think as an organization, which goes back to the culture thing, is are you hiring the right individuals for your organization that represent not just being a good salesperson, but actually being someone that you have hired intentionally and thoughtfully, and they meet a set of criteria that you're looking for, because like we know, like one bad apple can sort of, spoil the whole bunch, what I mean? Just based on like personality and how they're influencing the rest of the team and so forth. So, but I think it's unrealistic for companies to think that they can squash out personality or that they can put such wraps on them that they're not allowed to have social media profiles or they're not allowed to talk about certain things. Like to me, then you've hired the wrong people, because there are people out there that don't have social media profiles and don't talk about themselves on social media and like, have a very private life. Those are your people, because if anything, there's friction there when you do that. So I believe in individuality. I do believe in having a personality and being able to use that for whatever your role is, and really just like going back to maybe the purpose conversation is, we spend 80% of our lives in the grind, that's a lot of precious time to spend wasted if the work you're doing doesn't align with, what you can do and what you can offer to the world. And so I think in business and whatever you're in sales or anything of that nature, you have to find something that aligns with who you are and what your gift is or what your gifts are, so that you can love what you're doing. Because otherwise, that's the best sales of all, is people who actually love either the product or service or the company that they're working for. They're going to sell better, they're going to perform better, they're going to be happier, and they're going to do better because they're in an alignment with an organization that they believe supports them and they feel protected and safe and they love. So
yeah, enables them to express themselves most authentically as well. So in that environment, absolutely. Now we're going to move into the last segment of the show. I've got some standard questions I ask all my guests. And first one, Sunny, is when you are out selling Motto's services, what's your most powerful sales attribute?
I would say, and I've heard this before, and I'm only, I think I have this attribute and I've been reassured that I have this attribute. I think that I am a very passionate person and I really believe in what we're doing and what we offer. And I think that really comes through, and that authenticity of what I'm doing comes through. And so I tend to be a little bit infectious in that I can really get people on board and really paint the vision of which I hope to achieve and get people on board with me to go towards that vision. And so I really think it is one of my strengths.
Okay. Like it. So you started your own company. Who's your role model? Who's your business role model?
That's a deep question and a personal question. My parents, my mom and dad were very near and dear to me, and my father was an entrepreneur. I grew up in a family that was entrepreneurs, and, they taught me how to really come from nothing to something. My dad started his business.
What was the business?
He was a commercial contractor, and he's a lot of different things before he was a commercial contractor, but that was really the thing I think that became his true love. Mm-hmm. And I watched him grow it. He never graduated college, never went to college. He grew up in a coal mining camp. And his dad couldn't read or write. And his dad used to leave home with a shotgun and come home with a car. And he used to know how to barter really well. And so my dad learned a lot of that.
Oh, yeah.
And then
he barter, not stole. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He didn't steal. But he couldn't read or write, but he knew how to work people. And my dad was really gifted at that. He was so likable, and nobody said a cross word about him. And I grew up watching that. I watched him grow his company from 3 people to 150 men. He was working on multi-million-dollar jobs, started his company, I think, with $250 in the bank. Very similar to Ashley and I's story. I started my own company. I co-founded Motto with Ashley back in 2005. We had $250 in our bank account. Mm-hmm. We'd never worked for another agency. And pretty much everybody told us that we would fail. And, I think having been and seen the blueprint of my own mother and father and how hard they worked, really taught me how to survive, and to carve my own path and to, no matter the resistance that I met, to be able to overcome. And so they are hands down probably my biggest influences. But I would also say Ashley. I mean, she's my co-founder, and she's absolutely inspires me every day. Is so smart. Good at all the things that I'm not good at. And so she inspires me too. So, I would say those 3 people are pretty much my role models.
Good answer. So one book every one of your clients should read. What is it?
Paul Arden. It's not how great you are, it's how great you want to be.
Good choice. Good choice. Okay. So last question for you. This is always the toughest one, is what music's on your playlist right now?
Oh, I love Coldplay, and I listen to that a good bit, and I listen to a lot of blues, a lot of blues and jazz. Billie Holiday, just stuff when it's raining.
The blues when it's raining. That's
the blues
good.
when it's raining. Yeah. And a little bit of bluegrass too. I'm a bluegrass player. So
you are?
I am. Yeah. I grew up playing bluegrass when I was 8 years old and was a pretty prominent picker by the time I was 11 years old. So my original path was probably to be on the Grand Ole Opry, but I became a designer instead.
Are you still playing?
I do play all the time. I can play about 8 different instruments. So
wow.
I pick a good bit. Yeah, I miss it a lot. I don't get to play as much as I did, but I any chance I get, I will be on Snapchat having somebody film me, and I try to get on there and play guitar and keep myself going.
Interesting. Okay. Well, great. Mm-hmm. Well, good. Well, Sunny, thanks for joining us today. So how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, you can find us at wearemotto.com. And we're also alternatively on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook at We Are Motto.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much. And remember, friends, make it a part of your day every day to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success. And an easy way to do that is to make this podcast a part of your daily routine, listening on your commute, in the gym, or part of your morning sales meeting. That way you won't miss any of my conversations with top business experts like my guest today, Sunny Bonnell, who shared her expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your business. So thanks for joining me. Until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.